5, and our first order of business, it looks like it would be the approval of our April 2nd meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion, we approve those minutes as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Next order of business is the opening of bids for the Lower Elliott Regulated Drain Project.
All right, looks like first one is from Morphe Construction. There we go. A total base bid of $2,035,032. Next one is F&K Construction. A total base bid of $813,600. Next one is Atlas Excavating. A total base bid of $799,014. The last one is Milestone Contractors. A total base bid of $1,031,700.
Mr. President, I move we take these under advisement.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to take the bids under advisement. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes. And thank you to everyone who submitted bids for the Lower Elliott project. Next up is, we get into our project list, the W. Zach?
Thank you, Tracy. I believe Representative from Kenley Horn is here. Yeah, Nigel, go ahead and present it.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Nigel Hensley with Kenley Horn. Our office is at 101 Foundry Drive, West Lafayette, Indiana 47906. The project before you is called the W. It is a proposed multifamily subdivision. It is located approximately midway between Klondike Road and County Road 400 West, immediately west of the American Suburban Utilities property. If you're familiar with the area, if you can go to the next sheet, Tara. The existing drainage patterns that we see before here is some offsite coming through the property, but the majority of the site, overland flows north towards the northwest, where it eventually outlets into an existing wooded ravine swale type feature. Also, you can also see there too is the existing basin A2 that the developer is accounting for some future development as well for this property. And then if you go to the next one. And so for the proposed conditions here, We're proposing a wet pond to provide the stormwater quantity and quality required for the project. The site is located within the Indian Creek watershed, and the release rates proposed for the site do meet the restrictive Indian Creek watershed release rates. The site to the west is primarily duplex and private roads, and then to the east, northeast, there are your typical apartment buildings with private roads as well. And then a clubhouse feature along the south property there as well. Again, for the proposed conditions, the drainage features primarily meet or match the existing, where everything will drain to the north towards the wet pond and then release to the northwest towards that existing wooded ravine swale. Thank you for all the comments that we've received and all the discussions that we've had. On behalf of our client, we respectfully request approval of this project. Happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Nigel. Just real quick for the board, Nigel did a very good job explaining the project. I do want to say a couple things. First and foremost, it is inside the Indian Creek drainage impact area, and they are complying with the restricted release rates within that impact area. They also are in compliance with our stormwater drainage ordinance, and I'd be happy to answer any questions, but recommend approval as stated on the construction approval memo dated April 29th.
Any questions for Nigel or Zach? Anybody from the public wish to comment on the project? Seeing no one?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion. We grant construction approval per the Burke memo dated 4/29/25.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Okay. Next up, is it Timberbrook?
Yeah, next we have Timberbrook Estates, consultants, T-Bird Engineering. Pat Williams is here to present.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Pat Williams. I'm with T-Bird Design, 105 North 10th, Lafayette. Timberbrook Estates is situated along the south side of County Road 600 North, just west of County Farm Road. To the northeast is Battleground Middle School. To the southeast is Burnett's Creek Elementary School. Immediately north is Fieldstone Subdivision. Immediately west is Timberbrook Meadows Subdivision. To the south is actually County Commissioner's property, upon which a future planned development is proposed or currently under design. Timberbrook Estates is about 48 acres. It's proposed to be developed into about 139 residential lots. So residential subdivision situated between a couple schools, kind of boring, right? But actually for this particular project, the drainage is kind of interesting and complex. The main hydraulic feature is to the north, the Fred Hafner legal drain drains underground via storm sewer and tile systems, discharging into an unnamed tributary to Cold Ditch. That ditch basically bisects the property. The west part of the property was accommodated by Timberbrook Meadows subdivision, the larger subdivision to the west. Timberbrook Meadows, you can see the pond in the lower left-hand corner. That pond was designed to receive the west portion of Timberbrook Estates. The proposed design is in accordance with that approval for Timberbrook Meadows. The Timberbrook Meadows pond will be excavated to, or enlarged to handle the runoff conveyed to that pond. The goal of this project was to minimize the amount of runoff that I mean, basically the entire site flows directly into that open ditch. And so the design goal was to minimize the amount of uncontrolled runoff to that ditch. I mentioned the Oasis plan development to the south. Part of that development, one of the demands or desires for that development is to create a large aesthetic wet detention pond as an amenity for the community. So with this design, what we've done is we've attempted to minimize the amount of runoff to the ditch and send as much of the runoff as possible to this large Oasis detention pond, which has been designed.
Is that in the northwest corner there of the Oasis property?
It would be so you see the ditch
Yes.
flowing south through the
Yeah.
property. It would be, it'd be southeast of that ditch, right? So the ditch actually bisects the Oasis property as well.
Right.
But yes, just adjacent on the east side of that ditch. In general, the west half is pretty straightforward. It drains Timberbrook Meadows. It's in accordance with that approval. It meets all the drainage ordinance criteria. On the east side, we have about, the site is 48 acres. It essentially all goes into the ditch. There's about 11 and a half acres that will remain and be tributary to the ditch. And the Oasis Pond has been designed such that it's oversized. However, the uncontrolled runoff, that 11 acres, technically exceeds the allowable release rate for the short duration storm events, your 1 hour, 2 hour, low volume storm events. But in all of the other storm events, that pond has been oversized to the point where the existing runoff or the proposed runoff from the overall development, both Oasis and Timberbrook Estates, will be reduced by more than half. And so the larger volume events, the flooding events, the events that we're trying to control here, we are well below the allowable release rates. Like for instance, directly to the pond, that 1 hour storm event, that's 140 CFS is going to that pond, but that pond's only going to release 3.5 CFS in that 1 hour storm event. In the larger volume events, we're storing like 10 acre feet of water in that Oasis pond. In working with Burke and the consultant, I think, controlling that runoff in the 1 hour, 2 hour storm event, I think we've made every practical, feasible, accommodation to limit the amount of uncontrolled runoff to that ditch. Massive excavation. There are 2 road crossings of that ditch, which we still have to maintain, highway design guidelines or local road design guidelines. I feel like we've done that, and I think that this project meets certainly the spirit of the ordinance and in general meets, the criteria of the ordinance, both in stormwater quantity management and stormwater quality management. With that, we agree with all the conditions, and I'm here to answer any questions. And on behalf of our client, we request conditional final approval for the project.
I have a question, and it is in regards to the property that is, it's to the north of the development, and it's owned by Webster's and Abbott's in that area. And traditionally, it did get, it's better at times, but when you get a really significant rain, they're left with sometimes as much as 2 feet of water in their driveway in their front yard there. And I know obviously they're not here today, they're aware of the project, the zoning piece of it and everything, but their concern is going to be, are they gonna have the same conditions? Is this going to improve the conditions, or is it gonna make it worse?
Okay, so on their site, their site is flat, like the surface runoff that falls directly on their site is probably characterized as not well drained, right, just because of terrain. We are certainly reducing the amount of area that drains unto them directly. you know, whereas they may have had like 8 acres draining to them from our site, because it kind of flowed north and then back south. I think we've limited that to 1.5 acres, or maybe 2 acres. So we've reduced by the area that drains directly to them. So I would say that's definitely a significant improvement. As far as the road crossings, so we analyzed the 100-year elevation at the north property line of Timberbrook Estates, which is the south property line of Webster's, and designed our road crossings such that the 100-year in the ditch is at or below the existing 100-year in the ditch. And then also we evaluated so, I mean, it should be an improvement, right? There's less area draining to it. The 100-year will not be raised at their south property line, so there's no adverse condition that's going to be created by this subdivision. But also, you know, we evaluated we located the finished floors of all the structures, not just the Websters, but all the structures south of 600 upstream of the property, and made sure that in an emergency condition, like, you know, the public safety protection condition, that all of those structures would be protected with flood protection grade of at least 1 foot. If in the event, you know, the road crossings became clogged or something like that, it would be able to overtop the roadway and not impact or adversely impact the structures upstream.
Thank you, Pat. And the good news, Zach, is that traditionally, more recently, that water doesn't stay there quite as long as it used to. So
That's right. And
Yeah, with the improvements of Fieldstone subdivision especially, you know, and the detention ponds on Fieldstone, you know, the rate of runoff that's, you know, contributing to that area is reduced today, and that was all factored in. I mean, we're designing to the guideline, the design or the existing condition as it exists today, with all the improvements upstream at Battleground Middle School and Fieldstone subdivision.
thank you.
yeah, if I may, real quick, where I'm showing the red dot on the screen is the 2 residential properties that Commissioner Brown is referring to. Sheila Abbott lives here in the west one, and then her father and mother live in this parcel here. I've met with both families many times over the years, long before the school was there and even before Fieldstone was there. Been there and walked in the yard with Hal many times. So where I'm going with this is that as far as their drainage over the years, in my professional opinion, it has, the development in this area has certainly made the situation that they were dealing with historically better. Keep in mind that the water drains from the north to the south. And so when Battleground Middle School was built, there, if you see the blue line at the very top of the screen there, it shows a polygon. That's a very large dry detention basin intended to store stormwater runoff and release it. I think there's a 6 or 8 foot diameter concrete RCP pipe that goes underneath the road, goes through Hal's driveway, and then where the blue line starts, where basically, I can show here, where the open ditch starts, which is right here. There's a huge, large concrete head wall there where that dumps out. And so that project certainly made the overtopping of the road, because before any of these projects were done north of 600, and Hal and his family would see road overtopping on 600 frequently and water surface flowing through their yard. To my knowledge, that has not happened since the school was built. Then, as Mr. Williams alluded to, when Fieldstone was constructed, the west branch of the Fred Hafner regulated drain was intercepted and vacated, and everything north of Fieldstone runs into their detention basin now. So Sheila and her husband, which is the house to the west, to my knowledge, they haven't received the road overtopping coming across 600 their direction anymore either. And we also replaced the tile, the red line, as you see on the screen, that goes through their yard right here. That red line represents a subsurface county regulated tile, which I believe is an 18-inch, and we've replaced that clay concrete system with a new HDPE perforated dual wall pipe. And so that's all new through their yard. So long story short, what I'm trying to say is that the development in the area has made their situation better from the standpoint they do not see the water overtopping County Road 600 the way they historically did, which means they don't have it running like a river through their yard, so on and so forth. So I'm pretty confident in saying we have made things better. Would I go as far as saying we've solved all the problems? No, I never would, but it certainly has made it better. So I know it's a real long story, but I wanted to add to what Pat was talking about, because the surface overtopping is what has historically caused a lot of their problems.
Okay. Any comments from the public about the project? Seeing none?
Do we want to talk about the petitions?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so as we'd recommend the approval as stated in the memo, but I do want to point a couple things out in the memo. It is a conditional approval. I also want to point out for the meeting minutes, item number 3 and item number 4 under stormwater quantity. Pat, make sure you follow through with those. And the major one that the Drainage Board would be concerned with would be item number 3, which Pat and I have talked about this. Yeah, I think he intends on coming back in June or July or sometime soon with the petition to create a regulated drain. So that will be before the board and hopefully next month. Also, they are petitioning to reduce the Hafner regulated drain and to encroach upon the regulated drain. Those two petitions are located on the agenda under other business, but I would recommend that the board not only approve the project now, but also the two petitions as presented. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion. We grant conditional approval per the Burke memo dated May 1st, 2025.
And the petitions, or you just want? Second. Okay, second.
So we have a motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, it looks like we are Best Way Trash Transfer Station Project.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Whiting Schneider Geomatics, 1530 Winchester Boulevard, West Lafayette. Project before you today, and also the developers here, if the questions arise. The project before you today is a new transfer station for Lafayette area. The project site is located in Lafayette, but we do have county regulated drains that come through the site, and also a large professional area of storage that I'll talk to in just one second. The site will be accessed by Amelia Drive, there at the northeast and east. It is bound by a small section on US 52 to the south, west. In the south, actually, is railroad corridor and a new rail spur that's proposed to the project. The project will consist of a new transfer station building, access drive coming off of Amelia Drive, which is the court you see to the east by Tractor Supply, coming into a scale house with scales, and then going to the transfer station itself. There will be also, you can see the red line on the screen. That is an existing tile that's part of this project. We're going to be relocating and taking around the perimeter of the development itself. And that will be one of the first things that takes place with construction once approval is obtained. The site itself, we are proposing stormwater management on site with dry basins on the north
Thanks, Mike. We'll go over a couple different things here. We've been working with Schneider and the owner for several months now. And just to be clear, Mike alluded to some of this, but during the rail construction, which is generally in this location, just north of all the existing spurs, some of the depressional storage area, which was natural on site. I apologize, but my pointer's not working very well. Generally here, where I'm pointing with the red dot, the natural depressional area there, some of that was filled in. They have, they are planning to remove dirt to compensate for that, so the same volume will be stored on site so that we don't have any or protect against downstream flooding. The other thing that I want to point out for the meeting minutes is that the outlet that they're providing, which is here, it runs basically from here, which would be the south, generally the southeast corner of the trailer park, north across Ivy Tech's property to the Elliott open ditch. Just one thing I want to point out there, Mike and I have talked about this, and the owners, we have spoke about this, but Ivy Tech did some very elaborate private tiling on their property a few years ago. And so I did bring that up to Mike and his team, and they have met with Ivy Tech, and that was part of their negotiation. So they will protect that and repair it as they move forward. And the only reason why I know about that is because Ivy Tech and their contractor contacted me before they did the work. But I do want to make that known because it's very elaborate. The only other thing that I want to point out is that when the spur was placed, they did damage the tile that comes underneath the spurs. However, they have worked to replace that, and they are proposing to reroute the tile. They'll connect on to where they replace it underneath their new spur, and then basically the new tile routes along the southerly part and then up to the generally in here and ties back in to a structure that's located here at the southeast corner of the trailer park property. So other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but would recommend approval as presented on the memo.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, I do want to say one quick thing in regards to the tile reroute, and we talked about this in a pre-con meeting, but make sure that gets done at the very first, along with the detention basin. So I know you guys are eager to get the building up, and I want you to rock and roll on that also, but try to make sure all that gets done at the same time.
Absolutely. The developers will.
Yep, thank you.
Any public comment on the project? Seeing none?
Mr. President, I move that we approve the construction approval, the Burke memo dated April 21st for the Best Way Trash Transfer Station.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion passes. Thank you. Zach, I believe you still have some other business?
Yeah, so was the petitions? No, that's what I thought. Okay.
I don't think they were
Yeah,
included.
I didn't think so either, so that would be the next thing. So I did recommend approval of those.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion. We approve the petition for reduction of number 34, the Fred Hafner ditch.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And the motion passes.
Mr. President, I move we approve the petition for encroachment for the number 34 Fred Hafner ditch.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. And that motion also passes. And then next up, a resolution.
Yep, next we have a resolution number 2025-02-DB. This is some housekeeping that we've been working on for a while, based off of, I think, recommendation from Mr. Masson, the Drainage Board Council, and then also our county auditor, I believe. But this basically restructures or amends the reconstruction financing assistant program that the Drainage Board set up approximately 10 years ago, I think, or roughly. So,
Yeah, like Zach said, it's housekeeping. When we set it up, we created a reconstruction financing assistance fund, thinking that would make things easier to track and just be administratively simpler. Apparently it was not, and just having the money come in and out of the general drain improvement fund apparently is easy enough to track and will cause less administrative hassles. So this will, it's a two-step process. The commissioners will have to actually get rid of the fund, but this provides for the money to come in and out of the general drain improvement fund, and for any money left over in that financing assistance fund to go into the GDIC. And then that extra step won't be necessary. The other thing is that the way we contemplated it at first was, at least the way I wrote it up, I'm not sure anybody else had this in mind, was that that you guys would make that assistance available on a case-by-case basis. The way it's actually turned out is that when you do a reconstruction, sort of the default has been to make it, just make it available on every reconstruction project if somebody wants to take advantage of it. And this sort of flips the default. It says that it'll be available unless you guys say that for whatever reason you don't want to make it available for that project. So those are the two things. I would note that the last page of this document is a commissioner resolution. You can ignore that here today. If you guys approve it, we'll have the commissioners hear that second piece of it.
So do we have a motion for?
Well, I have a question for, if we want to go to section D on there. And if I'm remembering correctly, when we started this project, or we brought this resolution in, it was because the state was 10% interest. You could go to the bank at 3% interest, and we agreed to 5%.
Yeah.
Well, right now, the banks are basically 7% interest, the state's at 10%. We don't really want to become a banker and still charge 5% interest.
Okay.
In my opinion. Now, maybe you guys disagree with that. So that would be the reason why we could say no, I guess, if somebody came to us, or do we?
Well, what you would want to do, so that language is in there like that just because that's what we have in place now. So the 5% is just keeping on doing what we're doing, because I was just trying to do some housekeeping.
Right.
So either you could change that to make it some other interest rate, or when a reconstruction project comes up in the future and you're thinking, we can't do the 5%, we don't want to, you would take an extra step and say, we're not going to make the reconstruction financing program available on this project. Or at that time, you could do another amendment that changes the interest rate.
Because I'm just trying to remember that.
Yeah.
We were getting basically 3% on our money for the county, so hey, we'll charge 5%, we make a little bit more off of it. Now it'd be completely opposite. I mean, we're getting basically 6% basically on our money, so we'd be losing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's totally a policy thing for you guys. The reason, I think, at least part of the reason you did this was because the state statute was so out of touch with what the reality on the ground was, with the, 10% was really high. Now it's closer to what market rates are, I guess, but that's your call.
Would we want to tie it to some index that as of January 1 of that year, so that we wouldn't constantly be adjusting?
You could. I think we're just simple government folks, and so it was easier to have a flat number. But, I mean, yes, you could.
But that's a very good point. I mean, that, right now, that's
Right.
a great
It's
deal.
cheaper to
Yeah,
come to here to get
exactly.
this than it is to go through your bank or whatever. So, but we take that as a case by case as it comes through, if I understood what you're saying then.
Yeah, I mean, you can flip the switch on or off case by case. I think if you want, I mean, you can kind of do what you want, but I think it'd be tougher to just do every reconstruction project. This project's 5%, this project's 6%, this project's 2%, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I guess my recommendation would be, since this is trying to just do something else, that you don't maybe mess with it on this particular resolution, but be thinking about whether you, like the next time a reconstruction comes up, do you want to mess with do you want to alter the percentage, and what kind of process do you want? We could tie it to some sort of index, or you could just have it come up every year when you like get the drain reports and whatnot. Say, do we want to reaffirm 5%? Do we want to change it?
Because, and Zach, maybe this question goes to you, when we have most of these reconstruction projects, I believe in the past, you kind of said, here's your option, people, if you don't want, but at the same time, I think you understand my interest rate difference too. So I don't know if you still have reconstruction projects coming up to where you're presenting this information out there and they're gonna say, well, heck, 5% versus a bank at 7, I'm gonna do that. That's why I'm just curious.
Yeah, so, sorry, turn the mic back on. If I understood Doug correctly, I think my kind of overall assessment, and I do hear what you're saying, and I understand completely. This document today doesn't, or was not intended to, I guess, adjust the interest rate. It was more the process and the flow of money and how we're tracking it. But in the future, yes, I think the point you brought up, Dave, is very legitimate. I think we could probably, I don't think that problem has to be solved today. I think we could probably talk about that more as time goes on and on a case-by-case basis. Currently, and this is probably the most important piece of information, I do not have any reconstructions. With commodity prices where they are, the ag community has lost all appetite in doing reconstructions. Because if you remember, I had two pretty much ready already, well, we had them designed and they were ready to go to public meeting. And the landowners who signed the petitions called me and said, Zach, we have to pull it. It doesn't pencil out anymore. And they pulled their support. And these are landowners in the community that I have done reconstructions for in other watersheds. So they're very, very much positive and pro-drainage. And so we lost their support last year with where things are financially and commodity prices, et cetera. So I don't have any in the hopper, and I don't foresee any. And I did have a person contact me a couple weeks ago that said they may be interested, but they haven't laid eyes on the estimate yet. So we'll see how they feel after they see the price tag. But yeah, I don't have it in the hopper. So I guess my recommendation today would be to go ahead and approve this document as presented. The interest point of view or perspective topic, I think, is very legitimate, and we would need to probably have that later on. I don't know if there's any urgency. The interest rates may change again before we get another one to even view, Dave. So
Right.
I don't know that it's urgent, but it's certainly a legitimate concern.
Okay, and I agree with the whole resolution. To me, that was just like, hey,
Well, and then what I hear you say, and that I think Zach be careful on anyway, is that you don't want to get in the process where the project's being explained to landowners, and one of the things that gets explained to them is you got this 5% option, and then suddenly you guys feel like you need to do something different, and the landowners feel like they've been whipsawed by,
Right.
had the rug pulled out from under them.
Mr. President, I move we approve resolution number 2025-02-DB as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the motion passes. Any public comment?
Move to adjourn.